Chapter 583 Blade Technique of the God's Realm. Juzi was elated after her objective had been achieved. The evil soul masters were finally killed and Douluo had been chased away with Hua Yuao's help. Her plan was finally completed. So what if she were to retreat without attacking Shrek City? It was important to solve one's internal affairs before looking to tackle one's external problems. This was something she understood very well. However, her elation did not last very long. Worries and frustrations started to enter her mind. This was because Hua Yuao was simply too strong. Juzi understood Hua Yuao a lot better than any of the Class 9 soul engineers around her. It was definitely disadvantageous for him to exhibit such power in front of them. Even though Juzi had known that Hua Yuao was the person who had been destroying huge amounts of aerial surveillance soul tools within the Sun Moon Empire, the others did not know. Most of the people and higher-ups from the Sun Moon Empire did not even know of his existence. However, this was about to change. Hua Yuao had shown how he was able to take down 5 powerful evil soul masters, including the leader from the Holy Ghost Church consecutively. He was definitely going to become famous after so many people had watched him achieve this feat before their eyes. At the same time, he would also be prioritized as the main killing target by the Sun Moon Empire. A young and brilliant soul master like him would definitely become one of the key members within Shrek Academy. In fact, he was most likely going to become one of the leaders within the entire world of soul masters. Now that he was trying to go against everything the Sun Moon Empire was doing, Shu Tianran would not be able to eat and sleep in peace without killing him. At the same time, the Holy Ghost Church would also be looking for an opportunity to exact their revenge. Juzi's mind was a mess. Hua Yuao's incredible power was affecting the plans she had laid out. However, after her attitude changed, she was no longer that concerned with all of those plans she had prepared. She was more worried about Hua Yuao getting into serious trouble. Hua Yuao gradually stood up straight. Even though his breathing was still fairly rapid, there was no sign of weakness in his pupils. In fact, his eyes were extremely radiant. Hua Yuao had pitted his courage and intelligence against Douluo in this battle and had managed to defeat him. Despite the odds being against him, this battle had a tremendous effect on him. As the yin-yang complement soul cores rotated with an unbelievable speed within his body, the huge amount of soul power he had expended was recovering at an incredibly fast speed. Titled Douluo were extremely powerful because they possessed a soul core. Ultimate Douluos were able to tower above every other soul master because they possessed 2 soul cores. It was through such battles that Hua Yuao was better able to understand the benefits his 2 soul cores offered to him. As of now, his abilities were not sufficiently matured to allow him to fight powerful soul masters like Douluo. He had to rely on external power like his icy war god's armor and the morning dew dagger. However, he believed that he would not have any problem attaining the rank of an ultimate Douluo with the help of his 2 soul cores. Next, Hua Yuao's cold voice echoed across the battlefield. Just when everyone believed that he would try his best to delay the proceedings so that he could recover more soul power, he went ahead to request the next battle from the Sun Moon Empire. This entire challenge had started to take on a different flavor after Douluo was defeated. Initially, no one had believed that Hua Yuao would be able to accomplish this feat. Now, the powerful individuals within the Sun Moon Empire were starting to fear him. After all, he had used his abilities to prove to everyone that it could be done. Without the Holy Ghost Church calling the shots, the soul engineers from the Sun Moon Empire all looked at Juzi. By now, Juzi was no longer absorbed in her thoughts. In fact, the gasp she had made earlier did not seem to have been noticed by the others, or at the very least, no one understood why she gasped. Who among you is willing to take down Hua Yuao? Juzi asked in a composed manner. Right now, she had more than 10 Class 9 soul engineers standing around her. There were legion commanders from the various soul engineer legions and several worshipped from the Imperial Shrine. Only these Class 9 soul engineers would be qualified to fight Hua Yuao. However, none of these soul engineers had attained the equivalent rank of a transcendent Douluo. They could only rely on their soul tools if they were to fight him. Besides, they had all witnessed the previous battles. None of them were confident of defeating Hua Yuao. After all, this was a battle which concerned their life and death. If even Douluo was defeated by him, it was very unlikely that they could return alive. There was complete silence for a good few seconds as Juzi revealed a growingly furious expression. Some of the soul engineers who were weaker started to become embarrassed. It was extremely shameful that the Sun Moon Empire no longer had an individual who was brave enough to accept Hua Yuao's challenge. All this while, the Sun Moon Empire had been invincible. They had never experienced such a shameful and humiliating situation. Marshal, I'm willing to fight Hua Yuao. A bright voice could be heard from the back. A soul engineer from the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion stood up. One could tell that he was just a normal soul engineer from the soul tools which he was equipped with. He was at best a Class 5 soul engineer. However, one could tell that he was not afraid of Hua Yuao at all from the gusto in his voice. After hearing what he said, every single Class 9 soul engineer revealed a frustrated look. At the same time, they were embarrassed that a Class 5 soul engineer was more willing to put his life on the line to protect the name of their empire than them. Then, another soul engineer stormed out and exclaimed, "Can you not be a fool and overestimate your ability? Do you think you are qualified to represent our army? Scram, or I will punish you by military law." This person who had stormed out was concealed within a black human-shaped soul tool. There were 2 long blades were sheathed behind his back. His entire body was radiating an extremely powerful piercing aura. One could see how the young soul engineer wanted to rebut what he had just been told. However, the young soul engineer ultimately lowered his head and retreated into the contingent. The soul engineer who was wearing a human-shaped soul tool turned around before bowing toward Juzi. "Marshal, allow me to represent our empire." Juzi nodded and said, "All right, take care, Commander Liao." "Thank you, Marshal." The soul engineer who had just stepped forward would definitely not have volunteered to fight Hua Yuao if he had a choice. However, there was no way he could afford to not step forward. This was because he was Liao Menkai, the Legion commander of the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion. After seeing how his subordinate had the courage to represent the empire, there was no way he would be able to lead his Soul Engineer Legion if he were to continue to cower. Hence, despite not having much confidence, he still stood up to take up the challenge. Amongst the hand that protects the nation, the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion was undoubtedly the strongest. They were followed by the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion. The last 3 were the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, the Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, and the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion. The Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion was extremely powerful because of the resources they had hoarded. The Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion had also improved a lot after the War God Empress had taken over. The Evil Eye Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion specialized in speed. They were extremely great at pursuing enemies and then killing them. What about the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion? They were definitely the most unorthodox Soul Engineer Legion among the 5 legions which formed the hand that protects the nation. As stated in their name, the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion specialized in assault operations. The Dark Golden Terraclaw Bear was known as the strongest assault-type soul beast. Its close combat ability was unparalleled among soul beasts of a similar level. The Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was exactly the same, other than some of the necessary linked defensive soul tools. All of their members specialized in close combat. This also meant that this Soul Engineer Legion primarily consisted of close combat soul engineers. Ranged attacks were the most common attacking style among soul engineers. However, the fighting power of a close combat soul engineer was, in fact, a concept that was very similar to what Hua Yuao had initially envisioned. He had wanted to see the fusion of the abilities a soul master and a soul engineer possessed. By relying on soul tools to enhance one's martial soul's fighting ability, one would be able to strengthen one's attacking power within a limited range. This was something all close combat soul engineers were trying to work towards. For example, Ji Juikin was essentially a close combat soul engineer. To a certain extent, Hua Yuao was also a close combat soul engineer. Once one cultivated his close combat ability to their maximum potential, their overall combat ability would even outpower that of a ranged attack. At the same time, one's survivability would be greatly enhanced. Hence, the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion was often dispatched to assault fortified structures. Their members were all extremely disciplined, and were not afraid of dying. Liao Menkai was the Legion commander of this Soul Engineer Legion. This naturally meant that he was extremely skilled in close combat fighting. After deciding that he would accept the challenge, Liao Menkai did not hesitate anymore as he leapt from where he was to where Hua Yuao was currently standing. He immediately accelerated through the air as he raced toward him. Even though no one knew how much soul power Hua Yuao had expended in his previous battles, everyone knew that they must have taken a lot out of him. Hence, he knew that he had to try his best to reduce the amount of time Hua Yuao could use to recover his power. This was the best way to improve his odds of defeating him. Even though a title Douluo possessed incredible regenerative ability, it was ultimately limited. In addition, recovering one's expended spiritual power was a lot more difficult than recovering soul power. When Liao Menkai leapt into the air, the black human-shaped soul tool in his body instantly released a dark golden glow. He grabbed the blades, which were sheathed behind his back with both hands before unsheathing them. His pair of blades were matte black, and did not seem to reflect any light at all. At the same time, they gave off the impression that they could devour anything that stood in their way. Even though they were radiating their sharp aura from a distance, everyone was still able to sense how intense their aura was. While they were being brought across the air, they seemed to be leaving two fine traces after slicing through the air. Huo Yuao's spiritual detection landed on him instantly. This person has an incredible amount of life energy. Huo Yuao was startled to discover that the life energy this soul engineer was radiating was actually comparable to his. It was a lot more powerful than what a normal titled Douluo had. Even though one's life energy would not directly decide one's fighting power, a powerful individual with strong life energy tended to display powerful abilities during battles, and was usually able to sustain high combat performance over extended periods of time. However, so what? Huo Yuao was floating in midair as he waited for Liao Menkai's arrival. This person did not unleash his martial soul. This was something Huo Yuao had accurately determined. Normally, even soul engineers would first unleash their martial souls in battle to either strengthen or support their attacks. At the end of the day, any kind of boost would be better than nothing. Huo Yuao had only seen one other person who relied purely on his soul power and soul tool. That person was none other than Ji Juogen. However, Huo Yuao was able to tell that this person was treading on a different path from Ji Juogen. If he was planning to attack in a similar way as Ji Juogen, he would not have his human-shaped soul tool. His blades would have sufficed. The light from his matte black blades intersected each other in the air as they formed a cross that sped towards Huo Yuao. The sharpness of his blades gave off the impression that the cross would be unstoppable. Huo Yuao raised the morning dew dagger in his hand as the blade of the dagger instantly released an icy blue glow. The glow stabbed right into the center of the cross. The matte black light from the blades paused before turning white, following which they disintegrated into the air like the morning mist. Liao Menkai's heart sank after watching this. It was one thing to spectate Huo Yuao's battle with the 5 evil soul masters, and another thing to be up against him in person. Liao Menkai could not seem to sense any pressure from Huo Yuao's body. It was almost as though he did not have any aura at all. However, this only served to put more pressure on Liao Menkai. After all, he had seen how Huo Yuao had taken down 5 transcendent Douluo consecutively with his own eyes. The thought of going up against someone like Huo Yuao crushed his morale as his battle intent weakened. After the first probing collision ended, Liao Menkai appeared before Huo Yuao at the very next moment. He had positioned one of his blades to the front and the other to his back as he slashed both of them towards Huo Yuao. Soul engineers rarely use their martial soul true body, as it would affect the effects of their soul tools. However, it was even more rare to see people like him, who did not even unleash his own martial soul. The sharp light from his blades was easily parried by Huo Yuao's morning dew dagger. At the same time, Huo Yuao lifted his land hand as a streak of dark blue sword light came towards Liao Menkai. Unparalleled chill, Emperor sword. Liao Menkai was the only person who could sense the chill that was traveling down his spine. Huo Yuao had long been able to concentrate his ultimate ice after understanding the intricacies of the element of ice. Liao Menkai's figure flickered as his entire body became a little illusory. Poof. A soft sound could be heard as the unparalleled chill turned the black figure into an ice sculpture before the sculpture started to fall from the sky. However, another black figure had appeared on the other side of Huo Yuao as it surged towards him with its brightly illuminated blade. Huo Yuao moved his body and teleported away instantly. However, the black figure also vanished at that very instant. In addition, Huo Yuao found himself unable to locate the person's position even with his spiritual detection. Huh? Could this be? Huo Yuao was visibly startled by what he had just witnessed. Until now, Liao Menkai had not even unleashed his martial soul. Hence, his teleportation ability must have been granted to him by a soul tool. Could the human-shaped soul tool he is wearing now possess the ability to teleport? No, it can't be this simple. From the look of things, it's almost as if he completely vanished. It's not the same as teleportation. This means that his human-shaped soul tool must possess some sort of ability which is very similar to spatial power. That would be insane. While Huo Yuao was trying to understand Liao Menkai's power, a figure had suddenly appeared behind him. The figure was wielding a black blade which was giving off a menacing black glow. Because Huo Yuao had been enveloping the entire battlefield with his spiritual detection, he was able to react instantly. The icy war god's armor immediately emitted a layer of dark blue light. When that matte black blade glow came near the icy war god's armor, it was almost as if it had sunk into a marsh. It instantly stopped as an extremely cold aura immediately attacked the black figure. The effects of Huo Yuao's ultimate ice were always present. Even though he had become a lot more conservative with it, and had not released his snowy dance of ultimate ice again, he was still able to unleash the power of ultimate ice on his opponent by just activating his intent. Without hesitating at all, the black light flickered, and Liao Menkai vanished again. In that short instant, Huo Yuao's morning dew dagger was about to stab into Liao Menkai, but he vanished in the nick of time. This was exactly how assassins like to fight. After failing to land their blows, they would immediately retreat to prepare for their next blow. Of course, Huo Yuao was able to instantly understand what Liao Menkai wanted to do. It appeared that Liao Menkai had the same plan as Douluo. Both of them wanted to expend his power. They wanted to use their various methods to burn his spiritual power and soul power. What a good move. Huo Yuao revealed a cold smile. It might be very demanding for me to deal with Douluo, but do you really think it will be demanding for me to deal with you? A soul engineer who has not even reached rank 95. You might have a human-shaped soul tool, but I have one too. On top of that, there are some things I have which you do not possess. Huo Yuao gradually raised the morning dew dagger in his hand until it rose above his head. The dark blue glow on the icy war god's armor suddenly weakened before it intensified and illuminated the area around him. After sensing this extremely intense cold, Liao Menkai, who had just reappeared next to Huo Yuao, immediately went back into the void without any hesitation. Huo Yuao slashed his morning dew dagger outwards. At that instant, no one could see exactly what he was doing. His entire body was like a dark blue ball of light, where countless streaks of light were radiating from his body. At that instant, everything within 1,000 meters of him was enveloped in a piercing blade light. The icy blue light ripped apart all space easily. This was obviously an indiscriminate attack. Even when he was up against Douluo, Huo Yuao had not unleashed such an attack. What kind of technique is this? Fortunately, Ji Juogen was not present. If not, the sword fanatic would definitely bug Huo Yuao to spar with him after this battle. He would not have cared even if he were to lose. After Huo Yuao had unleashed this technique, the entire sky had changed color and now revealed a radiant picture. It was as though a gigantic icy blue dragon was flying in the sky. Every single scale on the dragon's body was immensely clear. Is this something a sword technique is supposed to be able to achieve? Everyone from Tang Sect was startled by what they had just witnessed. None of them knew when exactly Huo Yuao had mastered this technique. After all, this technique did not belong to the Douluo continent. It was passed on to Huo Yuao by a god. Rain Dragon's Dance. This was the first time Huo Yuao was using this technique on the battlefield. At the instant he unleashed this technique, he felt as though the soul power stored within his yin-yang complement soul cores was being gulped down furiously by the morning dew dagger. The black figure was forced out from his hiding spot within the void as Liao Menkai frantically waved his blades before him to protect himself. Nonetheless, he could not help but sustain 13 cuts on his body. His class 9 protective soul barrier was shattered. His invincible barrier was also shattered. One could also see the streaks of icy blue light that were left on his human-shaped soul tool. The piercing cold instantly penetrated his human-shaped soul tool and went straight into his bones. Even though his human-shaped soul tool was also class 9, its defensive ability could not be compared to the frightening power of the morning dew dagger. The formation arrays within the class 9 human-shaped soul tool were instantly destroyed by the blade light. If he had not been wearing an additional suit of class 9 inner armor, he would have turned into an ice sculpture. It was frightening, simply too frightening. What kind of dagger technique could shred space over 2,000 meters? Huo Yuao was somehow able to restrain himself and only use it now. How many trump cards does he actually possess? The powerful soul engineers and soul masters from the Sun Moon Empire could not help but tremble as they watched Huo Yuao unleash that technique. However, they did not know that he was also regretting what he had just done. Even though the Rain Dragon's Dance was able to startle everyone, it demanded too much from him. He realized how much soul power he had lost just because of that technique. Even the powerful regenerative ability of the yin-yang complement soul cores was not able to compensate for the soul power he had spent. It took almost 30 seconds before the sky started to lose its peculiar appearance after it was carved and torn into the shape of a dragon. Now, the sky had turned into a sea of ultimate ice. It was clear how much soul power Huo Yuao had expended to achieve this feat. Die. A loud howl escaped from Liao Menkai's mouth, following which, two long matte black blades were released in Huo Yua's direction. They sped towards him like lightning, while Liao Menkai started to drop towards the ground from the sky. Everyone knew there was only one reason why a person would toss out his or her weapon in the middle of a battle. This was because the person wanted to create an opportunity to escape. Even though a Class 9 Soul Engineer might not be able to match a top-class Soul Master when it came to fighting power, their ability to survive was definitely a lot stronger than that of a Soul Master. If it were a Soul Master with an equal or even higher cultivation than Liao Menkai, who was on the receiving end of Huo Yua's Rain Dragon's dance, he or she would have already been shredded to pieces. However, Liao Menkai was still alive. Two matte black blades instantly appeared before Huo Yua one after another. The blades were staggered by a single meter. A serious look immediately formed on Huo Yua's face. In fact, from his first battle until now, he had not revealed an expression this serious. Huo Yua raised his morning dew dagger to deflect the first black blade, following which, he did something which no one was unable to understand. He tilted his body slightly as he used his left shoulder to take on the attack of the second blade. TSKK. The long blade pierced through his shoulder instantly. Even the powerful defensive ability of the icy war god's armor was unable to block the blade. However, Huo Yua's shoulder did not seem to be bleeding. He simply stumbled before he fell from the sky. Tang Wutong immediately panicked after seeing him fall. She was about to dash over to catch him when she saw him raise his right hand and signal her not to come over. Following which, two loud thuds could be heard. Liao Menkai and Huo Yua had crashed into the ground one after another. When Liao Menkai landed, his body fell forward in an unsightly manner before he rolled over into a sitting position. On the other hand, Huo Yua landed in an extremely steady manner. However, the blade in his shoulder made him look very frightening. Ha ha ha. It seems like you were shot down by my blade. Liao Menkai let out a burst of laughter. He was obviously very pleased with himself for successfully harming Huo Yua, a feat which not even Zhongli Wu had managed to do. Huo Yua nodded at Liao Menkai. He said, I never expected to see someone like you who would dedicate your life to perfecting a single art. If I had not been watching you and sensing when you would release your martial soul, I would probably have been in a worse state. You were actually able to ignite your own life energy to freeze the flow of my internal energy. If I am not wrong, your martial soul should be a blade, right? Liao Menkai nodded. He was impressed by how Huo Yua was able to deduce all of this during the battle. That's right. My martial soul is a blade. To be more precise, it is a blade soul. My blade soul does not possess a true physical form. It is quite different from the usual weapon martial souls which you probably see. However, it is able to fuse into any metallic object perfectly. When I had just started to cultivate it, it was extremely weak and powerless. However, as I became stronger, I started to realize how powerful and useful it is. Huo Yua continued, even though your previous attack looked as though it was intended to prevent me from going after you, you had actually fused your martial soul into your second blade while you burned your life energy to restrict the flow of energy within my body. The first blade was meant to be a distraction, as you had simply thrown it over in a fairly normal fashion. It seemed like you must have consumed a lot of tonics and herbs to strengthen your life energy. Yes. In fact, I actually unleashed my ninth soul skill earlier. It is called Soul Splitting Blade. If I am to be honest, you are doomed. From the moment my blade entered your body, you were bound to die even if you were to chop off your limb. After all, my demonic god blade is a class 9 soul tool. The other blade is a class 9 soul tool. By using my Soul Splitting Blade to enhance my class 9 soul tool, it is essentially indestructible. Even if you were an ultimate Dalu, you would still die because your passageways would be severed by the destructive energy which will ravage your body. To be honest, I don't think I would have been able to freeze the flow of your internal energy if you had not fought so many people beforehand. After releasing that powerful technique of yours which exposed my location, you had expended too much power and became vulnerable to my technique. Huo Yua nodded and said, I admit that I have underestimated you. This is the price I have to pay for doing that. However, I want to remind you not to overestimate the power of your blade soul. Even though it can hurt me, it will not be that easy to kill me. As he spoke, Huo Yua gripped the hilt of the demonic god blade with his right hand as he slowly pulled the 5-foot blade out from his shoulder. Right now, Tang Wutong no longer dared to watch Huo Yua. Her fists were clenched as she wished she was the one in his place. However, Huo Yua did not allow her to go over. After all, this battle against 10 opponents was a battle which was exclusively his. It was a man's battle. Liao Menkai was startled to see Huo Yua removing the blade from his shoulder. He did not expect him to possess the energy to remove the blade. What? This can't be happening. Why do you still have the strength? Shouldn't you have used all of your soul power to suppress my blade soul? Why do you still have the strength to remove the blade? Liao Menkai had already ignited his life energy and used every single ounce of energy in his soul power to launch an all-out attack. Even though his attack was successful, its effects fell short of his expectations. How could he still be able to remove the long blade? There was actually another reason why Liao Menkai was willing to go out and challenge Huo Yua today. He was, in fact, driven by his greed. He wanted Huo Yua's morning dew dagger. As a powerful fighter who possessed the blade soul, he believed that he ought to be able to control the morning dew dagger even if he did not possess an ultimate ice martial soul. He believed that he had a good chance of becoming a transcendent Douluo if he were to couple his blade soul with the godly weapon. It was important to note that one could only become a class 10 soul engineer after attaining the abilities of a transcendent Douluo. This was something he had been dreaming of for a long time. Liao Menkai watched Huo Yua slowly remove the 5-foot blade without spilling a single drop of blood. However, because Huo Yua had a visor over his face, no one could see his expression. Nonetheless, everyone believed that he was not in that much pain, since he was able to extract the blade in a fairly steady manner. Finally, the entire demonic god blade was removed by Huo Yua. His body trembled a little as he held the class 9 soul tool in his hand. The demonic god blade only had a single characteristic, its extreme sharpness. Similar to how Liao Menkai went after the extreme in his fighting style, it was the same for his weapon. It was so sharp that even the icy war god's armor was unable to block it. Powered by his blade soul, the attacking power which was unleashed by the demonic god blade at that instant was almost on par with that of a godly weapon. If Huo Yua had reacted slower and treated it as a normal attack, his heart would have been pierced by the demonic god blade. How were you able to do that? Liao Menkai asked Huo Yua in a dazed manner. Huo Yua wielded the demonic god blade in a reverse grip as he used the side of his palm to lift his visor. Even though his face appeared to be a little pale, Huo Yua revealed a calm and composed expression. I have kept you alive until now just so that I can show you how useless your attack is on me. You had no chance of killing me at all. Now, it's time for you to vanish from the surface of this earth. Please show mercy. Juzi exclaimed from her seat. However, this was the battlefield. There was no room for mercy in war. Boom. An intense explosion could be heard. Liao Menkai's body had exploded into pieces. Even till his last breath, his eyes were still widened in disbelief. Liao Menkai had ignited his life energy and given up on defending his body to launch his final attack. In fact, he had injected all his soul power into the weapon and used his other soul tool to conceal the glow of his soul ring in order to unleash such a deadly blow. However, was his enemy still alive? By banking everything on his final attack, it implied that he had completely given up on defending himself. However, the truth was that all of his passive defensive measures had already been shredded by the Rain Dragon's dance executed by Huo Yua's morning dew dagger. By the time Huo Yua's ultimate ice had permeated into Liao Menkai's body and he had fallen to the ground, he was already seriously injured. Most of the passageways in his body were already frozen solid. Under such circumstances, the ice explosion was definitely all that was required to deal the finishing blow. Huo Yua gradually turned around to face the Sun Moon Empire's army. He stabbed the 5-foot-long demonic god blade into the ground as he used it to support his body. Suddenly, he let out a serious cough as 2 streaks of blood shot out from his left shoulder like arrows. After leaving Huo Yua's body, these 2 streaks of blood formed the shape of a blade as they turned around to attack Huo Yua. A golden light immediately shone from Huo Yua's forehead and enveloped the bloody blade soul, following which, the blade soul exploded silently before vanishing into thin air. The blood stopped flowing from Huo Yua's shoulder. It had only left some bloodstains on Huo Yua's icy war god's armor. He remained standing there as though nothing had happened. Next, the blood did not make him look vulnerable or weak. In fact, it made him look a lot more intimidating. The contrast of the blood against his pale, cold face made him look like a devil who had just descended onto their land. 6th. This was already the sixth person. Huo Yuao was able to win all 6 battles with his superior abilities. He had killed 3, injured 2, and captured 1. If Juzi was not exactly very upset by the Holy Ghost Church's failure earlier, it pained her to see the Legion commander of the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion fall. After all, Liao Mengkai was a Class 9 Soul Engineer. On top of that, he was the Legion commander of a Soul Engineer Legion. It usually took a couple of decades to nurture a talent like him. Every Class 9 Soul Engineer like Liao Mengkai was a strategic resource of the Sun Moon Empire. Juzi was starting to understand why Huo Yuao had suggested this challenge. He was not only trying to force the Sun Moon Empire into a retreat, but also trying to reduce the Sun Moon Empire's power while improving his own abilities. Even though Juzi could not control the Holy Ghost Church, the Holy Ghost Church was still on the side of the Sun Moon Empire. Under Huo Yuao's ruthless attacks, the Holy Ghost Church had sustained huge losses. Now, they were starting to lose their Soul Engineers. Even though the Sun Moon Empire had quite a few Class 9 Soul Engineers, they were still very limited. They did not have more than 20 Class 9 Soul Engineers, even including those who were initiated in recent years. However, Huo Yuao and his peers had already taken down more than one. On top of that, it also pained Juzi to see Huo Yuao injured. Right now, Huo Yuao's breathing was slightly labored. It was evident that his injury was not light at all. Liao Mengkai's final attack was something he really had not expected. It was the first time he had seen such a powerful all-out attack. Liao Mengkai's attack was built on extreme sharpness. Hence, every single attribute which he possessed was developed with that consideration in mind. His invincibly sharp soul tool was greatly enhanced by his blade soul to an incredibly frightening extent. By the time Huo Yuao was able to sense its insane power with his spiritual detection, he immediately knew that there was no chance he would be able to block that blade. Hence, he instantly used his ultimate ice to freeze and protect the passageways in his left shoulder to attempt to block it. At the end of the day, his icy war god's armor was still effective at defending him. It was able to negate about 50% of the blade soul's power. After the remaining power had entered his body, it had started to try to ravage his body in a furious manner. Just as Liao Mengkai had predicted, it had tried to shred everything within his body to pieces. Fortunately, Huo Yuao possessed his yin-yang complement soul cores. With the nourishment they provided, Huo Yuao's body had gained strength that put it on par with Tian's. The soul power vortex in his body had played a big role in preventing Liao Mengkai's energy from tearing his body apart. Huo Yuao's soul power vortex was able to lock onto the blade soul before forcing it into a corner with its continuous rotation. This prevented the blade soul from hurting his vital organs. Nonetheless, he still fell to the ground because he had trouble controlling his body in that moment. Eventually, he managed to use his soul power to force the blade soul out of his body. In fact, the entire process was extremely risky. If he had not formed his yin-yang complement soul cores before this challenge, Liao Mengkai's attack would have been fatal. He would have died instantly. However, Huo Yuao did not emerge from this costly battle without any benefits. While he sustained a serious injury, he gained a better understanding of his yin-yang complement soul cores and their useful effects. However, the truth was that performing the Rain Dragon's dance with the Morning Dew dagger had been too demanding on Huo Yuao's body. Now, he was left with less than 20% of his original soul power. Many of his bodily functions were also slightly damaged. Nonetheless, he continued to stand there as he stared down at people from the Sun Moon Empire with cold eyes. At the same time, Huo Yuao was trying his best to activate his yin-yang complement soul cores to recover his soul power. He was definitely going to fight on no matter what. After all, he still had his invincible spiritual power and thanks so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also leave a comment down below with suggestions on what novels to read.